Hi, I'm Robbie Susan Chandler from RobbieSusanCardsandCrafts.com. I live in Quincy, Florida, right outside Tallahassee, Florida. And welcome to my YouTube channel. Please visit my website at www.RobbieSusanCardsandCrafts.com. I'm here today to share a project with you, so let's get crafting. Today I'll be sharing a card with you made with the two-tone floral dies. I use the fresh Freesia paper for almost all the pieces on this die. Now this is what the die looks like, but I did a little bit of a different take. Instead of I could have just cut the die like this and just put it down in one piece like I have for this Valentine card. But instead, I decided to try to find a little place where it would look like a natural cut and make it a little opening at the top with my sentiment inside. And then the top folds back down and you flip it under there. So let's get started on how to make this card. Here are the supplies I used. Two-tone floral dies, and I used this big piece here. For my little sentiment on the front, I used Sentimental Park dies and the smaller one. For the stamp sets, Beautifully Happy is a celebration item that you get free with a $100 order. And I use these two sayings, sending happy thoughts for a feeling better kind of day. And then also on the inside, on this piece, I used the decorative borders and used that border piece right there. Alright, and I want to show you the paper, some of the paper I used. That sentiment piece that I showed you, this one, is from this pack called Textured Shimmer Paper, and it has shaded spruce, white, and balmy blue in it. And it has a little texture on it, little lines going through it. Beautiful paper. And then for my background of my die cut, this piece, this came from the fine shimmer paper, and it also has fresh freesia, soft succulent, and gold in it, and it's a beautiful pack of paper also. Alright, let's look at our pieces. Our base is 11 by 4 1/4, scored at 5 1/2. So that's our card base. The fresh freesia piece is 5 1/2 by 4, and I kept it at 4 because the paper, you know, is 12 by 12, so you get even cuts with 4 inches. And then the piece I cut with the die is a piece of fresh freesia cardstock, 5 1/2 by 4. My inside sentiment's on a piece that's 4 by 3 1/2, and it actually goes in the card this way. And then I just use a scrap for this piece. Okay, let's start on this card. So the first thing we have to do is cut our fresh freesia cardstock, not the shimmer piece. Now the table's going to shake a little bit when I do this because it just is a shaky table, but I want to give you some hints on this. The first thing I like to do when I'm cutting a die this intricate is to take a dryer sheet and just wipe it across my cardstock. Then I also maybe just take a little wipe on the back of the die. Now what this does is, these fine dies like this, when you start pulling them out of the die, little places like this want to rip and stay stuck in there and won't release. But I found just a little wipe with a dryer sheet, and you want a new dryer sheet, not a used one, seems to help that. Okay, so I center my die on my cardstock, and here's another hint. I'm going to show you the difference. Now, I hope this, let me move this over a little bit. Alright, so you see I've got this going straight in right now. Well, let me show you what happens. When I get to the die, it's like, oh my goodness, it just doesn't want to go in. So the best thing to do in a situation like that is to take your die, turn it at an angle, So you have a corner going in first and not the head of it. So you want to start with the corner. Alright, let's try again and see what happens. Oh, look at there. Sorry for the shaking. There it goes. And back out. Now here is another tip. I like to check and see if it cut through. And sometimes you could just turn your plate over and take a look. And I've noticed that up here at the top, I have a little place on this die that doesn't want to cut. So I just turn my die upside down and I run it back through. And I'll try to do this fast and spare you the wiggling. Try not to get seasick. Sorry about that. Okay, now I don't know if you can tell there, but those pieces are just falling out. So, see, look, half of them are right there on my plate. So I just have a little box that I take it over to the side and I get all the pieces out. And it just comes right off the die quite easily. So then I take this piece, and I'm not going to take the time to clean all the pieces out right now, but most of them are out anyway. And we're going to adhere this to the shimmer, a beautiful shimmer paper. Now, there are several ways you can do this. One, you can just turn it over and put little dots of glue everywhere and maybe make a mess probably. Or you could have put a two-sided sticky paper on the back and cut it, and sometimes that's a pain to try to pick all those out with that sticky paper. Or what I've done is I spray mine with this Elmer's multi-purpose spray adhesive. Just turn it over on the back, give it a little spray, stick it down on your shimmer paper. It's quite easy. Just make sure if you're doing more than one that you change your paper each time. You don't want to lay this down on one you've just sprayed because you'll get sticky on both sides. Okay, so now once that piece has been glued together, see, here's one I did. And you want to make sure all these pieces are stuck down, because when you cut here, you don't want all these pieces here flopping around. Alright, so this piece is cut. Now I'm going to adhere it to my card base. So that's the next step. We're going to stick that down. And I just use plain old Tombow green and white. I call it the green and white glue instead of saying Tombow. It's a lot easier. So put it on your card front. Now it should, the way I have it cut, it matches top to bottom, but you have a little tiny border on each side. Now what I decided to do to get my design there is to find an area that looks like where the flowers would cut nicely, and around these leaves and around that flower and off here. So I found out the hard way in card class. You have to be pretty clear about these instructions. You don't cut it with both pieces like this. You open up your card front so the back is free, and you start cutting right along that little line that you made to show you where it's a good place to cut. And I'm just using our paper snips, and they seem to work pretty well. If you have bigger, sturdier scissors, those would probably work too. Just follow along that line, and you're trying to outline leaves and flowers. You don't really want to cut your leaves and flowers in half. A weird look. You want to keep this card pretty because this is a pretty card. And I picked Get Well because I thought, well, this card ought to cheer somebody up who's not feeling well and maybe help them feel better. Alright, almost there. Okay, and there's the end. So now we have these two pieces. Okay, now here's the next tricky part. Make sure you have already done your inside piece, because it goes down first. Yes, it goes down first. because if you glue this piece down first and then try to put this on, not so good. So let's put this one down and put it right up at the top. And this is one reason I liked this around the corner decorative border die, because I got this corner section here. Since I'm going to be putting something down here on this corner, I wanted an offset there. Draws your eye up there and gives some pretty attention. Alright, then glue this bottom piece all the way down. I mean, it glues flat. It's not going to move. It's not going to flip up. It just glues flat. And when this comes down, it should meet it perfectly. Okay, so far we've got our inside. We've got the front and our flap. Now let's put a sentiment on the front. I've already stamped my sentiment, sending happy thoughts, and put it on my little tag here. And I put it on both pieces. They have dimensionals and dimensionals. Now, you have to put this so that this corner is going to go under this. And when you put your dimensionals on, make sure you come far enough down and you leave yourself a little lip there for that purpose. So I'm just going to stick it right here. Oop, let's get a little bit straighter. That's not as straight as I'd like to have it. Okay. Let's stick it right there. Okay, so now when this flips up, that stays right there, and when you close it back down, you just slip it under there and it holds it shut. Okay, so that is how you put this card together, and I hope you enjoyed this and will give it a shot yourself.